to the next session, which is on the Internet of Things. Now, as we all know, the Internet of Things has both a consumer side and the industrial Internet of Things. And when we speak about industrial Internet of Things, we also talk about 5G, we talk about smart cities, we talk about everything, Internet of everything, basically. Our focus is going to be more on the enterprises part of it, a little bit on the smart cities, a little bit on the confluence of all the technologies like AI, ML with in the Internet of Things. And of course, how does 5G fit into this entire thing? What are the kind of problems that we faced? What are the kind of opportunities? And what is the way forward? For that, I would now like to call on screen Ritesh Arora, the Chief Digital Officer at CEAT Limited. Arvind Tiwary, a technopreneur, the Chair IoT Forum of the Indus Entrepreneurs. SureshKumar KK, who is the VP India Open Data Exchange and Data Spaces at the Indian Institute of Science. And Srinivasa Rao, who is better known as VSR, the Chairman and MD of BT and BT. I see that all of them have managed to join out here. So welcome, folks. Let's get on with how to make things smarter. So, friends, as we see from the profiles of all the speakers, we will be talking both about the power of IoT in enterprises and cities. And the rationale is very simple. There's endless amounts of data, as we have seen from the earlier panel also, but here in this particular case, available from sensors in real time today, whether from machines, from objects, from customers or suppliers. Now, this has given rise to new possibilities, not only in manufacturing, but also in logistics, developments, and the services industry. Now, that said, IoT projects also need to prove the ROI part of it, the return on investment. So in this context, we'll be talking broadly about the opportunities, the challenges, and the way forwards. Let's start with you, Ritesh. We have had this conversation earlier too. Basically, let's talk specifically about CEAT as a company. You are the Chief Digital Officer. IoT is just one of the technologies that you're using, of course, with a confluence of AI and ML. It's not, we never strictly have a conversation just on IoT. So can you give our audience, use a couple of minutes just to give us a perspective of what you're doing at CEAT with these technologies?
Yeah, so it's IoT, AI, all these are journeys. These are never-ending journeys. You keep building on top of these. So in that sense, we are also on that journey. Like many other enterprises, we are also trying to leverage these technologies. So, we all have been hearing 50 billion devices, connected devices and all. So essentially, from a manufacturing perspective, and since you said that to give some background on what's happening on CEAT, from that perspective, things for us are tires and the machines that manufacture the tires, and we are working on connecting both of these. And it's very interesting the kind of use cases or the kind of business objectives these lend to. For example, if I talk about smart products, right? So we are putting sensor inside the tire, right? And traditionally, and in many of your cars, you would have seen temperature and pressure readings. So now we are going few steps ahead, and we are saying that we should be able to predict failures. We should be able to say when the wheel alignment is due. All these alerts will be delivered on mobile to the customer. And another interesting thing, use case is that if you think of fleets, the commercial fleets, you can change the entire business model. You can make it, per kilometer basis, cost per kilometer model. So there are a lot of interesting possibilities in disrupting the industry. And another interesting thing about this is that smart product, and I'll come to the plants, smart product, you can still innovate in isolation without disrupting your existing business. Still you are innovating. Once, of course, you launch, then you have to maintain that balance. There are conflicts which need to be managed. And whereas the plant is concerned, the challenge, the objectives are very different. Here you are trying to get more customers change the revenue model, make more revenue. Whereas in plant, it's about cutting costs drastically, be it through scrap reduction or through energy, power, etc., cost of poor quality, and making better quality products with a much higher productivity. So you are making better quality products at a lower cost. So the cost is a big objective here, and it is very different from smart product in that sense, because the implementation that you are going to do, you are going to do in a running plant, and that too in a process manufacturing plant like ours, or any process manufacturing plant. It's quite disruptive when you have to do it very, very carefully so that you don't interrupt the production that is going on. So yeah, so that was my 2 minutes on what we are doing, why we are doing, and what are the challenges in brief.
You said a lot in you said a lot in those 2 minutes, and it was amazing what you do. And I know that many of them were understatement, because I know the kind of work that you're doing with the smart tires and all. Of course, the question is, what happens if these are smart tires? What happens to the other products? Do we call them not so smart products? So, of course, so it's always that kind of balance that one has to strike. Suresh, in your case, you have been on both sides of the fence. You have dealt with companies. You were at Bosch Engineering, you were with Intel Labs, you were with Sasken Communications. Now you're with the IUDX, the open source cloud based platform of IISC, and this is the India government smart city mission. So you have seen the smart products space, and now you're making cities smarter. Where do you see this whole we want to understand the IoT connection out here. And as you when we were having this discussion earlier, I think you, even the Ritesh and all the other speakers also clearly say that, today when we cannot talk about IoT in just in isolation.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Leslie. Thanks for having me here. So, if you look at Ritesh actually touched upon a very pertinent point, and you were asking actually, what is the IoT connection in industry? So it's actually had gone up to the vehicle tire. Okay, so I think it cannot go beyond that. So from a city point of view, if you look at 2015, India started 100 Smart City program. And at that time, if you look at the situation in this country, we had only few video cameras connected in cities, which is basically doing surveillance over whatever available fiber. And then, the smart city program was looking at traffic management, transport, when is my bus coming, air quality monitoring, solid waste management, which we were water management, these kind of things. And the only way was basically to do it with IoT. If IoT was not there, I would say it would have not been possible. I think we have discussed this before also in some of our other summits, where we call it actually, we can call it a smart city 1.0 or smart city phase 1, where this is predominantly digitization of manual operations. For example, we are cutting a traffic challan for a traffic violation. Means somebody need to catch him, stop the vehicle, and pull out the key, and then issue a ticket. And other than that, you put a camera and do a character recognition, pick up the number plate, and then see in what seconds, how many seconds you have violated, and then give a ticket according to that. So this is basically converting manual to digital. And that phase was really hard. Means predominantly it is capital intensive deployment of sensors. And at that time, we were actually, when we started, most of the devices were actually GPRS. And 4G was just evolving. So now 4G has come, and we are actually moving towards 5G. So with cellular connectivity, take the data to the nearest fiber point, and from there basically you can get onto the data center on the internet. So the sensors convert the physical reality of a number plate or a solid waste waiting or a where is my truck or where is my bus into a digital scenario. And then now we have huge amount of data, and that is the phase 1. And we many times, we keep complaining, saying that 2015, it took 4 years, 5 years. Cities are still coping up with it. Yes, it takes tremendous amount of effort to deploy it. And I would say that we were actually not sure how we are going to do that. But I would say that against all the odds, most of the cities have done extremely well, and thanks to all the companies, Bosch, Siemens, Hitachi, HP, you name it, everybody was L&T, Tata Projects, everybody was there in the game. And now the good thing is many cities, around 20 to 30 cities, actually generating good amount of data. And that is the time actually we were looking at. Now the data is available. And we keep hearing, no, data is the new oil and data is gold. So what is our behavior? If something is so precious, do not share it to anybody, hold on to our chest, right? So this was one of the problems. And good that, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, which is the Smart City Ministry, recognized it. And we started it. It's actually a project of creating a data exchange. Means you can bring all the data sets, not only smart city data, healthcare data, everything into the platform. And now you can share it out from there. And means the power of the solution, the phase 2, which is actually AI ML driven phase 2. We don't need new sensors. We don't need new cameras. The available data itself is so powerful. You combine it. For example, you take the solid waste data, combine with the traffic data, combine with the transport data, and then optimize the whole solid waste management. So this is predominantly AI ML driven, and this is what we call it as phase 2. And once we have the data exchange and we are ready to share the data to the data consumers, again back to the same L&T, Tata Projects, Hitachi, so they can combine them and create killer applications. For example, if you do an optimization of solid waste management, means when the truck should go, how many he should pick up, even though 100 is allocated to you, you pick up only 30 because you are already full now. That itself will get you around 20 to 30% efficiency. So from a solid waste management budget of around 100 crore for a city, 30 crore is a huge. And we are not talking about new sensors. We are talking about data analytics based solution, which a couple of crores may be needed for that. And rest is all money generated out of that. So this is how phase 1 has done the base work of digitization, and phase 2 is really going to explode with the killer applications.
Great. Thanks, Suresh. I think what is important that we are already bringing out the clear relationship between IoT, data, AI, ML, and then, 5G, which is why I'm going to keep Arvind for the last, because he has promised to speak on the connection between 5G. So let's move to VSR. VSR, this is shorter, so I hope you don't. Yeah. So. Now, you have been speaking to a lot of plans. You have been speaking to a lot of in this particular context of IoT, what are companies asking you? What are the kind of opportunities that you see there?
Yeah, thanks. Actually, if you look at in the past, most of the times we were asked to automate the processes to reduce the human interventions and all. But today, it is very, very complex, and the whole anatomy of the business is getting impacted. I think you rightly said the confluence or fusion of technologies. It's not just 3, 4. I put it on one slide. It's 20 technologies or more have been impacting, and the board of directors, the CXOs, CEOs are worried now, because it's not just only impacting the process automations. Like if you know, the car has almost 1 million lines of code. A pacemaker has 80,000 lines of code. So you can give now the life to any non-living thing or a thing. Okay, that means what? Your products are getting digitalized. They are asking what sort of new features needs to be added in my product. I think one of our colleagues said the CEAT, they are adding sensors to the tire, right? Like that. Giving life, that means they're able to sense, they're able to think, they're able to communicate. It is a car or a machine or equipment or asset, whatever. That's one. The second important thing is they're talking about how do you really bring digital innovations in our services. That means the omnipresent, anywhere, anytime, using any device. Can I offer my healthcare services? Can I offer for my banking services? It could be a wearable device, then I can get my accounting information. It could be a telehealth, so that in a remote area, I could get a better healthcare and all. So the services configuration is getting changed. And most importantly, the business models are changing because of this technology fusion. Unfortunately, we are not really able to focus most of the customers in India. So you look at in Australia, one of the very good examples I will tell you, a bank is doing a non-banking activity. What does it mean? They have a loan platform, which is a software platform. They enrolled the real estate providers into that platform, car dealers into that platform. That's called, I think, the providers, right? The other side, anyhow, you have millions of consumers already, your account holders or your deposit holders and all. What they did very simply, the real estate providers uploaded all their venture details. The car dealers uploaded all their cars and whatever the different models are there. There is a matchmaking. Now I want to purchase a house. I have now 100 real estate providers at one place. That is a banking system where I can basically search for my preferences. I get a great house. I select it. Then what is the advantage to the bank here? Give the loan. After all, to give the loan, now they want to do a matchmaking. It is like a Uber type of a platform they built it, right? So now we have to look at the customers are looking for how you please change my business models. What new channels I can open to reach my customers? What new pricing models I have to have and all, right? So I think the whole anatomy of the business is changing. That's where the customers are worried that, hey, my God, I mean, if you don't change, one classic example I'll tell, probably then we can move to the next part. You know, it's baby diapers, right? The baby diapers are injected with software. They have embedded chip and software, and then there is something like 5G connected to the mobile phone. You can read now the glucose level or a blood pressure or temperature. Mom can be sitting at the office and she can see what is the health of my baby. This is the classic example of a baby diaper. But can you imagine? So I am the CEO of a company who have been there in the industry for the last 40 years. I've been producing a baby diaper, rashless, smooth and all. I don't survive if I don't embrace these new technologies and add the chip and software into my baby diaper and all. I think these are all the changes are happening because of the technological confluence or fusion.
Yeah, I think this is exactly what we have been speaking out throughout the day in all the conversations, smart versus the not so smart kind of products and disruption basically. And Arvind is like itching now to get in the 5G angle out to it. VSL touched upon it a bit, but I can see Arvind smiling very broadly. So Arvind.
Thank you, Leslie, and thanks a lot. Just before we started, we had Uma Ganswani talk about moonshot, and I will relate to that. One of the problems in India, which is not realized when we copy a lot of ideas, is that we are a very frugal economy. We don't have the money. And one of the things in IoT is the lack of capacity. When you need data for AI, you need lots of measurements. A chocolate factory or a biscuit factory or a smart city. Typical smart city, when you have all those 7 or 8 large applications running, you need around 60,000 devices a square kilometer. None of the current technologies in India can support that device density. 3G will collapse much before that. We don't have the spectrum of the device. Wi-Fi will also collapse, and we need a lot of power for these devices. Power will also collapse. So you need a very different way of architecture, spectral efficiency, and ways to do. And 5G has, I mean, lots of people will talk about bandwidth. That is one part of 5G. The other part of 5G, which is more relevant from an IoT, is massive device density. 5G is specifications run for 100,000 devices per square kilometer or a base stations. 30,000-40,000 are in practice. So that's a big issue. Plus, the power required per device is low, and you can offload. You don't need a central base station from a service station. You can have femto stations, small routers in your factory, in your apartment, and you can offload a lot of things from the central stations, which is what is happening in industrial IoT. A lot of factories, a lot of townships are going for what is called a private LTE network. You bypass the cellular Reliance or Airtel, etc. You do an in-house thing. It's fairly easy to do. The Open RAN specifications that 5G offers allows that. And satellites also come into the picture. You may be surprised at how affordable and available LoRa and other satellite-based communication is available in remote areas. So the connectivity equation, spectral efficiency is changing, which means that you need imagination. Typically in enterprise, too much is driven by cost reduction And if I may say, the bean counters who have very little imagination how to use technology to take moonshots and disrupt. All these things are very disruptive. If you collect a lot of data, you can optimize. I mean, TikTok tells you within 2 minutes what movies you will like. It doesn't need to do much. It measures everything. So the experimental mode, the need to experiment a lot and embrace a lot of the moonshot ideas of data-driven AI using much efficient low-cost devices to be the key. And smart cities, unfortunately, is a lot about physical infrastructure. They're building fiber, they're building bridges, they're building parks. They are not using AI and algorithm for much of smartness, apart from car parking where something has happened. And Suresh can correct me, there's not much of data transformation that's happening in India.
I think the other panelists, the earlier panelists, wouldn't have liked you on your panel because, I mean, especially the telcos, when you're saying just bypassing the major telcos and moving on to other technologies. But that said, of course, the point is also we have to see 5G in the country in the first place. The spectrums auctions are yet to take place. But having said that, I mean, there are other challenges when implementing IoT. One is, of course, like integrating the APIs with legacy machines, lack of good data, lack of good talent, too many departments to liaise with, lack of standards, hence interoperability. So would anybody of you like to comment on these challenges? Ritesh, perhaps, because we can start with Ritesh.
Yeah, sure. So early in the day, when we embarked on digital journey, not specific to IoT, one of the first learning was that as long as the data, and tire companies traditionally have been B2B, and it's just 5 years back that we started talking to the consumers and collecting consumer data. So as long as the dirty data is within the four walls of the enterprise, people know their way around bad data. But the moment you expose this data to the outside world, hell breaks loose. That's when you really know the quality of your data. So I think, and that's a tough one to crack because it's not just a function of putting together a technology solution, but culture and very strong governance around it. And specific to IoT, I mean, I can talk about some of the challenges that we have seen. And, Tire is a very unique product in that sense. I'm sure that all product companies, all products have their own idiosyncrasies. But Tire, I think it would be up there when it comes to being, very difficult for sensorization because tire is rubber. As the temperature increases, the physical properties, the dimensions of the product change, right? And many of the algorithms that we have, the diameter of the tire, so you have to have the dynamic diameter as well. And then you have so many radial forces. Now the sensor inside the tire, it's an extremely hostile environment. There are temperatures going up to 80, 90 degrees. You have very high G forces, and you have battery also inside. And then because we have radial tires, so the seal cage, it's like a Faraday's cage, and it tries to prevent the signal from escaping. So before you talk about IoT analytics or anything in our industry, first you need to understand physics. So first we cracked physics equation before we started getting into algorithms and models and all of that. So that is a big challenge that so many prototypes were made, so much of testing was done to ensure that the integrity of the sensors, the battery doesn't burst because it's also a safety hazard if the battery catches fire and all. So the lot of rigorous testing happened even before we could get into the state. And then, like I said, because it's an enclosed body, getting the signal out was very difficult. Back in the day, the Bluetooth used to suck battery very fast, but now that has improved. So so we had radio frequency based transmission. Then we realized that the truck length is very long, so the signal doesn't reach the gateway. So we put some adapters in. So I mean, and then trucks go into remote areas also on highways, whereas there's no signal. So I would say the challenge is, I mean, even before we hit the market, and a lot of times we say that pushing the business model new business model in the market, the pricing, those are the challenges. But for me, so far, these have been, the really, really big challenges. So,
No,
so
fair
yeah,
enough. No, I mean, if I probably start asking all the panelists each of the challenges, I think I'll be spending another, 2 hours just on a litany of the challenges. So I will not get there. I will quickly, in the interest of time, because we just have about a couple of minutes left. Each one of you, just quick minutes. Let's start with Suresh. Suresh, how do you address these challenges? 2 points basically.
Sure, Leslie. So one is basically from a IoTs, the sensor devices previously had to be very accurate. I would say 2016 is kind of a time frame. But now data analytics and MLS come. So we can actually predict a lot of data, extrapolate a lot of data. Hence, the cost and the complexity and the connectivity requirement of IoT devices are actually becoming less. I think that's a great plus. And second thing is, as I mentioned, the AI ML, with that you can predict the data, you can create any kind of inferences, put automation. So that is the second plus. And third one is, we are getting into a mode. I would say this is not a major challenge. Technically, we can, I would say there is technology-wise, there is not a challenge. We are getting into a mode of, you give me the good amount of data, I will create a killer application for you, and I will also give you some money back. So then we are talking about a new business revenue models. Government's purchasing mechanism has to move from quality come cost basis to L1 to, how much money I'm going to save, and then how much you are going to give me for data monetization, how much you are going to give me as a saving. So that is going to be, I would say, little bit of a challenge. But
yeah, I think some part of it is practical, some part of it is pretty wish fulfillment. So I think we'll rest there. Quick thoughts, please, yes, sir. It's on mute. You need to unmute it.
Yeah, sorry. So most of the things I think we spoke, but most important thing in my view is the cyber security. Today you got connected to the whole internet, and anybody can hack it. Yeah.
We have a whole panel dedicated to that now.
Right. So one important thing is cyber security, and second, I feel there is a paradigm shift required from the academic institutions and also the organizations. The convergence of engineering, especially when you talk about IoT, you need mechanical, you need electronics, communication, computer science, IT, instrumentation. I think the convergence of all these engineering disciplines plays a very vital role to make a product successful, and also to address some of the challenges mentioned by our panel. Last one, as I come from services industry, a lot of changes are happening while you deliver the software applications in this space. There are new methods and philosophies are coming in the software engineering, like ML ops, like AI ops, and model ops. Data ops is another important thing. I think data is really becoming a very, very critical thing. So I think all these new software engineering practices needs to be embraced by the CAO organizations, or they have to get it from the partners and all to deliver faster and better or high quality IoT solutions.
Great.
Thank you.
I'm giving you the last one.
Arvind here. Yeah, so I just wanted to buttress two things. Suresh mentioned about the fact that with lot of data, both in time and space and analytics, AI, ML, the need for very high quality sensors or the need for understanding the physics of the phenomena is far less important. And I would mention it. I have seen Continental and other tire companies do with a lot less physics, because there are other ways of solving the problem. And it's a question of experimentation. And you can see it with the way swarms and drones are changing military warfare. I mean, in the European war, I mean, you had in the Eastern Europe country wars, drones completely obliterated territorial army. Swarms go in and go out, and these are controlled in a very devious ways. They do not have very high precision, very accurate cameras, etc. It's just a lot of data and analytics. I think we are in a very different era where a lot of low quality sensors, a lot of low quality machines, cheap machines, but operating like a swarm of flies with AI ML can completely outgun the elephants. And with that, I would like to end it.
I know Ritesh may want to counter that for sure, because Ritesh is actually the man on the factory floor who has to tackle the stuff, because you have given a 360-degree view. But I'm sure people like Ritesh are looking at all these newer technologies. So once again, we do understand that IoT offers a lot of opportunities. And as I said, not a single panelist has been able to speak about IoT without talking about data, without talking about AI, ML, and without talking about 5G. So the connections are very, very clear. So friends, thank you very much for your time. And hopefully we'll have some physical events also where I can have some more interaction in. So thank you very much once again.